#1 podcast in the universe. We live in Denver, Colorado with Ari from Easy Tax. How's it going?
It's wonderful. I'm so happy to be here with you, Brent.
Yeah, I appreciate you for coming on. Definitely a different interview for me, but we're going to be able to give a lot of game to the people. I feel like a lot of business owners are kind of nervous, so they might be, scared to do taxes, especially like small business owners. So I feel like you'll be able to, kind of make people feel comfortable and give a lot of game. So I appreciate you for coming on.
Absolutely. I want to share my story and help dispel some of the myths about taxes and how it works and why you should or shouldn't do your taxes.
So where are you originally from?
I'm originally from the east side of Denver. I grew up on 35th and Fillmore Street. And we lived in a little blue house there for up until I was 15. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was life like growing up on the east side of Denver?
It wasn't really, I don't have a lot of memories or things to say so much about it because my mom kind of kept us sheltered. I do have a memory, though, of every day we would walk from my house to Harrington, and my dog was famous. So,
really?
Yeah, whenever I was walking with him, they'd be like, hey, she's with Bobo. And I'd be like, Bobo's with me.
What kind of dog was it?
It was just a little Shar-Pei mixed with Pit Bull, but he had a reputation in our neighborhood of being like the vicious dog.
Oh, really?
And when I would walk to school, people wouldn't mess with me. So he was my protector. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. And then what was like school like? You said you went to
So I would walk to Harrington every day, but I went to Garden Place Elementary. So that was my 1st through 5th grade. I was in Garden Place. Then middle school, my 6th grade year, I went to Maury Middle School, and I was really nerdy. I never was the popular girl. I was always like the super nerdy girl, and so I got picked on so bad at Maury. And it's funny, too, because I'll see some of those people nowadays, and I'll be like, he used to pick on me. But,
really?
Yeah, it's not like any hard feelings. I just don't forget it, because when you get tormented in middle school, it, hurts your feelings. But my mom saw that I wasn't really succeeding in that realm, and so she switched us over to, me and my sisters, we went to a charter school called Odyssey. And it was a adventure learning school, so we would go out into the Colorado mountains and rivers, and we'd be out there with our backpacks for a week at a time learning how to survive and do school at the same time, which was pretty dope. And then I knew from there I didn't want to do public school anymore, so we moved to this neighborhood. Actually, my brother went to George, and we lived right across the street from George. And I went to Denver School of Science and Technology, and that was like life for me because I was a real life nerd.
Yeah.
I lived, eat, breathe, sleep school. I just loved school so much.
That's
and
cool,
Denver School of Science and Technology did it for me because they just gave me the opportunity to just be the nerd that I was, and nobody judged me for it. We were all nerds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my upbringing here in Denver.
So were you getting straight A's in high school?
I was doing pretty good. I had this kind of balanced life that I was living because my boyfriend at the time was just kind of in the streets a little bit, and I was in school. And so I made it work. I was able to balance out loving this guy that was 1 foot into the streets and then also balancing school. And it really wasn't the fact that he was in the streets. He was a businessman, and he was my first introduction to business. He would teach me kind of the simple basic rules of business, buy low, sell high, that kind of thing. So but through that interaction with him, I think that was my first taste of real entrepreneurship. The challenge is that a lot of the stuff that he was doing wasn't legal, and so a lot of the money that he would make, we'd have to see it go right out the door because he would have to pay court fees and all these different things. And I realized that there was a better way that I could take the same principles that I was learning from him and take them and legitimize them and make money that we could sleep good at night. So
that's real. That's a real story. I feel like a lot of people could probably relate.
I learned it early on, man. We went through a lot of hardships, and it kind of put me in this space where it was I got to make a decision whether I'm going to go down this route and just live this lifestyle of, we make money, the police come, take it all away, or is it going to be a thing where we make it so that we can keep it and get out of this lifestyle of poverty and
Right.
all of that stuff. So
That's real. Okay. So you doing good in high school and stuff. Did you go to college or?
I did, yeah. So when I turned 18, it was a really pivotal moment for me. I remember I was so in love with my boyfriend at the time, and things were going really bad. He just kept getting in a lot of trouble, and I was so in love with him. But I had an older sister at the time, and she sat down and talked to me, and she was like, I know what you're doing. She's like, the guy that you're with, he's going to lead you down the same path that I'm living right now. She was 25 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
2 kids, single mother, really, really struggling, living with my family at the time. And she basically explained, like, hey, if you don't make some changes, you're going to find yourself in the same boat that I'm in. And I'll never forget it, because she explained to me this analogy, and I say it to young girls and I talk to them nowadays, kind of living the same path, that when you look at a mountain, right, if you reach the peak really soon, the only thing that you can do is go down from there. And that's what a lot of us and a lot of my peers and even myself were trying to do, is rush to be grown, and rush to have a boyfriend, and rush to be able to get our own places and things like that. And you reach that peak so soon, and then what else can you do besides go down from there? So she was, right when I was 18, about to graduate college, she gave me that guidance, and I just took a chance. I had gotten into a couple schools, and I was getting tugged one way from the boyfriend, basically saying, like, stay here in Denver with me. And there was this idea of this new world out in Arizona, and I took a leap of faith. I went to ASU.
Oh, okay.
I left everything behind, and it was so hard because I was dealing with going to college, but also heartbreaking because my first love was heartbroken.
Yeah.
Because my first love was still here. But it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. It really was. Going to college really changed my whole perception of life. And even that was a whole story on its own. Yeah.
So were you able to get like scholarships to go to college, or did you have to like take out student loans? Like, how was that, if you don't mind?
So that's a good question. So I had gotten into CU Boulder here, and had I gone, because of the high school that I went to, they had like a partnership where if you would have studied engineering, you would have gotten a full ride scholarship. And at DSST, that was my high school, there was so much focus on like, become an engineer. We need more people of color. We need more women as engineers. And I had this side of me that was like, I liked the engineering classes because of the math, but I didn't like the physics and all of that stuff. And so when I went to ASU, my major was actually architecture, because I was like, well, at least I could blend in my interest for art and math in there together.
Right.
And I remember one night I just called my mom and I was crying. I was like, I made the wrong decision. I want to drop out of college, because I was so unhappy in the architecture department. And her advice to me was basically shop around. Like, you're at college, you're there, figure out what you like. And so she basically told me, when I wasn't in my architecture classes, to just go around, sit in different classes, and see what was really capturing my interest. And so the first thing I did was go to the business school. It's called the W.P. Carey School of Business. And I went and sat on an econ class, and the whole time I'm like completely focused in. Then I sit in on a finance class and I'm completely focused in. An accounting class, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. So by just taking that advice to actually implant myself where the information was and seeing what was sticking with me, I was able to kind of find my way in college, because, you know, at 18, nobody knows what they want to do. And even myself, I was so lost just trying to take guidance. I did end up taking student loans out, which it was what I had to do. We came from poverty. My mom didn't have a checkbook that, you know, she could write out a check for $20,000 for me. But I don't regret taking the student loans, because the option for me was to stay here and basically succumb to the lifestyle that I was living, which I wasn't going down a good path, or pay the cost to remove myself from that environment and to go into a whole nother world. So,
and I'm sure that definitely paid off.
It did. It paid off in the long run, for sure. I don't regret it at all. I will say, though, and I tell it to any young kids that come around me that are thinking about college, that do the scholarships because I was being lazy. I was so caught up in
Yeah.
boyfriend world and trying to, balance out this lifestyle that really wasn't mine. But if I had really been put my mind to it and been focused on it, I could have gotten a full ride scholarship to ASU. I just chose not to do the work. So.
Right. No, yeah, that's real. There's a lot of different essays and different grants and stuff like that.
There's so much money out there for college. There
Yeah.
really is. If you really want to go, then get them to pay for it.
Right. So, what did you end up majoring in then?
So I got my undergraduate at ASU in finance, and my dream was to go to Wall Street. That was like my dream. I was like, I'm tall, I'm a black woman.
Yeah.
They would love me in Wall Street,
Yeah,
right? And I went to New York probably a week after I graduated college, and New York was just not the city for me. Coming
No.
from Denver, and not to like knock coming from Denver, but just the pace that's here compared to
Was
New
a
York
little
was totally different, and I just wasn't ready for that. I was still really naive and immature that I really wasn't ready to make that big of a leap.
Yeah.
So I came back to Arizona, and I got my first job in accounting.
Mm.
And there was like no barriers to entry. Like all the other jobs that I was applying to, I do this long application interview process just for them to tell me no. But
Yeah.
accounting, they were like, come on, girl. So that was kind of my start. And it's really interesting because in college, I hated accounting. Like,
Yeah.
even though I liked the classes, I really wasn't doing well because there's a whole nother, you have to actually train your brain to think different about accounting, and I was
Right.
really struggling to drill those concepts in theory. But then when I actually got into my career, I found, oh, this stuff is easy. It actually makes sense when you're doing it versus reading about it in books.
Right.
Yeah.
What were some of the initial struggles with the accounting classes and stuff like that?
I think again it was just mostly terminology. So accounting is the language of business, and a lot of people misuse it. They'll say things like, "That's a liability," and they don't
Yeah.
understand like what a liability really is. It's
Yeah.
it's something that if you were to take it on, it means that you owe that money. We kind of use these words loosely in our cultural language, but they actually have a significance in the business language. And so coming from kind of a street background, having to retrain my mind about terms that I had heard,
Yeah.
when people talk about, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't make profit, but not really understanding what that means in business versus in street lingo, right? So
Right.
that was a huge part of it, of me having to let go of what I thought I knew about business from being around different street businesses and reconciling with what it actually looks like in real business.
That's really interesting,
Yeah.
honestly. Okay. So you basically kind of got a good job opportunity down in Arizona. And that's how you started your accounting career? you would
Yeah.
say?
Yep, exactly. I was working as an accounting clerk for a commercial real estate investing firm. And basically this company would go out and they'd buy the buildings that Hobby Lobby, Walmart, Sam's Club operated in. And my job was to allocate their rent money to their bill. And I would do that all day. It was just one button. And I hated it so much. Like I loved that I was able to get in there and I was making money, and
Yeah.
the building was breathtaking and literally had a view of Camelback Mountain, and there was a dress code which I loved. At DSST they made us dress in the dress code, so I was comfortable dressing business professional. But all day I was basically just hitting this button, hitting this button, hitting this button. And I remember feeling like I was in this big huge clock, and you know how clocks have gears?
Yeah.
I was just one little tiny gear, and there was all these other gears, and I was like, I want to know what the other gears are doing, and I want to know how the gears are turning together so that this whole big clock works.
Yeah.
So despite having that really great job, I quit it. And I remember feeling like really lost and frustrated because I had been out of college for 6 months, and now the student loan people were calling.
Yeah.
And when they first called me, they were like, all right, well, you graduated college, congratulations. That'll be $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even gotten to that point in my career where I was making $4,000 a month. And so I remember feeling really lost, like, okay, I got this degree in finance, can't go to Wall Street. I can get an accounting job, but that's boring, just clicking a button. It's like, what am I going to do with this knowledge that I have? And I just remember like trying to go back to like things that I was doing in my past that excited me. And I always remember like being involved in making money was really exciting to me. And so I started investing in the stock market. And it was really interesting. My dad had come across some money through, it was a long story how he got the money. It was legal. Yeah. But basically he gave me a gift when I graduated college of $13,000. And I was like, I'm gonna make this money grow. And so I was searching for ways to make the money grow. And I was like, you know what? All this time in my finance degree, I've been learning about the stock market. Let's just try that. Right. So I took every dime of that $13,000, I put it into the stock market. Within 6 months, I had turned it into $25,000. I was 22 years old now, making money in the stock market, didn't have a 9-to-5 job. And you couldn't tell me that I wasn't the shit. Yeah. I was like, I'm rich. I remember it was my 22nd birthday. I went all out, limos and all this stuff, because I just felt like I'm on my way to being a millionaire. Like, I don't even work a job, but I made $800 today, and I would consistently have days like that, so I felt untouchable.
What stocks were you investing in?
There was a lot of them, but most of them were penny stocks. Okay. There was one that I'll never forget. It was called Quest Rare Minerals. And basically this was around the time where like cell phones were like becoming to get really, really popular in terms of like the iPhone. Like around that time I had my first iPhone, which probably was a little late, but my first iPhone and touch screens and all that stuff. And this company manufactured the minerals that were in like the iPhone, so they were just killing it. I had a couple of pharmaceutical companies making really great money.
Were you doing like a bunch of research to like figure out about those?
Yeah, stuff? I was using, because I had got my degree in finance, so this was all stuff I had a degree in. Like they literally taught us how to do it on a large scale, and now it was like I was getting the opportunity to do it with my own money. So fast forward, I remember, I'll never forget this. I decided to take a trip to San Diego, and I took 3 days off of day trading. And I went back to my TD Ameritrade, and my portfolio had dropped $14,000 in 3 days. And I panicked. Yeah. I panicked. I was like, oh no, my money, like, what do I do? So I sold all my stocks, because I was just like, I gotta preserve what I had. And I remember later on that year in December, in the mail, I got this packet from TD Ameritrade with these tax forms. Mm-hmm. And so I had salvaged what I could, but I was scared to go back into the stock market. And I was just like, I'm done investing. Like, that must have just been luck or whatever, but I'm not going to risk losing any money like that again. So take my tax forms to a Liberty Tax. And it was this old lady that was the owner of the Liberty Tax. And I showed her the forms, and she was like, basically like asking me all these questions, like, where did you get this money to invest, and are you sure you want to file your taxes with this? Like, I could show you how to do it, or I could do it for you, but it's going to cost you a lot, because I had been day trading. And when you trade stocks, it creates tax documents. Every single trade is basically a line on a tax document, and I had a stack this thick. And so she basically explains to me that she showed me how to do it on my own, and because I had taken a big loss that year, I could carry it over several years. And just sitting with her, I was just so intrigued. I was like, oh my God, this is cool. And so conversation ends, and I'm like, are you hiring tax preparers? And she's like, yeah. So I was like, cool, I want to work for you. So she hired me on the spot, and my very first day of work, she hands me this costume. You've seen it before, Liberty Tax, you wear the little thing, and she's like, you got to go out there and wave customers in. And I was like, what? I have a degree, like, you can't make me go out there and stand on the corner. And we're in Arizona, by the way. It's so like really hot. 120 degrees, and this was probably like January. It probably wasn't that hot. I may be exaggerating, but I just do remember feeling like, I'm too good to do this. Like, you can't make me do this. But then there was this other side of me that was like, I really want to learn this, and she's teaching me, and if this is what I have to do to learn this, then I'll do it. So I just remember, even thinking about it makes me want to cry, because I remember going out there and like feeling just so embarrassed, but I did it because I wanted that knowledge so bad. And little by little, she was just teaching me so much. And that first tax season, I made a lot of money, and I was like, I'll be back. And so I kind of spent the next 3 years doing that, where I was like, work tax season, and then work a different job, and then I'd quit that job to come back to tax season because it was just, I don't
So
know.
interesting.
Yeah, it was so
Okay.
much. Yeah, it was so interesting and so much learning and so much. And I wanted to be like her. I was like, one day I'm going to have my own tax place like her. And I think the first year that I worked with her, she made $2.5 million.
Jeez.
So it was like, I didn't make that much, but it was
Yeah.
just cool to see like this business could generate that much money.
Right.
So
Okay. So you move, when did you move back from Arizona to Colorado?
so I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
Well, I did. I'm here now, right? Of course. So from Arizona, I stayed there, and that was a whole lot going on. I was kind of lost after it was all said and done. And again, doing this career bounce where it's like I do tax season and then I'd work a job just to pay the bills so that I could get back to doing taxes. But I decided I wanted to move to Georgia just out of the blue. I like would be places and it'd be like Georgia, and I'd turn on the TV and it was an episode of T-Pain's what was that show? I forget what it was. It was like where are they now? And then it was about his
okay.
journey to Georgia. And then I go to the library and it was a book about Georgia. So I was like, universe is trying to tell me to go to Georgia.
Yeah.
And I'd get in the car and it'd be like the song Midnight Train to Georgia. So I was like, okay, universe, I'll go. And at that time I had this little Monte Carlo that I had purchased, and I literally packed up all of my belongings, and me and my brother drove my car. Actually, no, I shipped my car. We drove my car here to Denver. I spent a few days here in Denver with the family, and then we shipped my car from Denver to Georgia. And that was a whole nother thing. So I spent a couple years out there working. I got my master's in accountancy, and
Where
that's
at?
I did my master's online at University of
okay.
Phoenix, yeah.
Okay.
And so the whole time though that while I was there in Georgia, I was really trying my best to figure out like how can I do the tax thing but also make it so I can eat after tax season is over. And so I started working for CPAs and enrolled agents, who are basically like designated by the IRS or the certified public accountants. That's what CPAs are. And I wanted to support them because I was like, if I work with them, then I can see how they do it. So I would tax season in, tax season out, just work with different CPAs, different enrolled agents. And that was when I realized one day that I'm in the clock. And not only am I just being one gear, I'm seeing the whole picture. Because when you work for small businesses, you get to do everything, right? They're
right.
not hiding. You're not just pushing one button so that another person can push another button. They're letting you see the full big picture. So that was where I really got to like tie it all together and make it. I was able to eat.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have to go from tax season job to another job. It was my first time in my life where I was able to do taxes during the tax season and then do accounting outside of that. So
Okay. And then did you move from Georgia to Colorado then?
yep. So
Okay.
I did a little bit. One of the things too while I was in Georgia that I did was I started doing accounting for the music industry, which that's a whole nother thing, right?
That's it. Georgia has a lot of good hip hop scene.
Yeah, and it was so awesome. Like I got really embedded. I was actually working in a studio home where basically the guy owned this house and the artists would come in and out and they would get to stay for like a week. They'd work on their project. We'd take the project, get it, do all the digital distribution, and then my job was to make sure everybody got paid. So I learned about split sheets. I learned about
Wow.
royalty accounting. I got so many good contacts from
That's
that.
really interesting.
Yeah, and then so from there, I set this goal because I realized that I didn't like having to be anywhere. Like I hated driving. Like traffic in Atlanta was just so horrible, and I realized I was
Yeah.
like, I want to make my money without having to be anywhere. So I started transitioning my career to be remote. So this was back in like 2017. I was like, I want to be 100% remote, and so I taught myself QuickBooks Online. And through that, I was able to do bookkeeping for small businesses without having to ever leave my home. And then I was like, well, since I don't have to be at home, maybe I can travel. So I started moving around, and I went to Mexico, and from Mexico I ended up in Colombia, and I spent 3 years there. I was working here in the United States doing accounting for major firms, e-commerce businesses, and in charge of $1 million businesses and $1 million bank accounts, and I'm all the way out in South America.
That's dope.
And so that was really fun, and I met my children's father there and had a blast. Traveled all around South America, learned Spanish, and had a really good time. And I would sometimes reflect back like, wow, had I not made that leap to go to Arizona State, I probably would have just stayed on the east side, stayed in Denver, stayed, and not to say that it would have been bad, because but at this point I was 10 years away and had not been back to Denver, and I had gone through so much here with just the upbringing that I had chosen for myself and the lifestyle that I had chosen for myself, that I was afraid to come back. And so 2018, I was pregnant, and I decided I didn't want to give birth to my kids in Colombia, because then it was going to be a process to get them an American citizenship.
Yeah.
So I came back to the United States, came back to Denver, and I remember going downtown and looking, and my jaw was on the floor. I was like, look at this city.
It grew a lot.
Look at this city. And I just remember feeling this mix of emotions, and I remember just saying like, wow, Denver, just like me, you've grown so much. And like, it was so important that I took that space from Denver to be able to appreciate it. But coming back here with seeing all the growth, I was like, oh, there's some opportunity here. So that was 2018 coming back, but being pregnant, and the relationship didn't work out with my children's father. And so I wanted to hit the ground and hit the pavement running, but I just wasn't in that space to do so. After traveling and being gone for 10 years, I had no roots here. I had no friends here. The relationships that I had from high school were so far out and so estranged. It was like, I can't just call these people and be like, hey, remember me from DSST?
Yeah.
We were friends back then, remember?
Yeah.
It was like I had to start all over. And so I did what I knew how to do best, which was just put my feet down into the business community. And I connected with a local tax preparer. His father had worked here in Colorado for 25 years, building an accounting legacy for himself. And when he passed away, he gave his business to his son, and his son needed help. And I was able to connect with him and serve as a support for him. And the rest is kind of history. Just through working with him, I've been able to create this vision here with Easy Tax.
Okay. So, wait, so you're still working with him to this day?
Yeah,
With Easy
so
Tax?
I have a whole office in Tamarack Square where we do private practice, mostly tax-paying clients. And last year, I've had this vision in my mind since working in Liberty Tax, but I pitched it to him. I was like, hey, I want to create something. And I basically explained to him what my vision was with Easy Tax and the clients that I wanted to service. Because when you talk about taxes, there's two types of people. There's people that get refunds, and there's people that pay taxes.
Right.
And the distinction is between them is tax bracket, right?
Right.
If you fall into one tax bracket, you're getting a refund. If you fall into another, you're going to pay taxes. So the clients that we service there at his office are more clients that actually pay taxes. We're here at Easy Tax, these are clients that get refunds. So I wanted to make sure that we were not missing out on any of the client base that was happening through there, but I also didn't want to ask him to invest. So I was like, this is my opportunity to prove to him that I can create something to expand the business that he already has in place. Yeah. And so I basically built this. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, created this vision as a way to kind of show my partner that there's more to be captured outside of people that pay taxes, that there's a whole population of people that need tax preparation services outside of H&R Block, outside of Liberty Tax. Because when you walk into a place like that, you're bringing your tax forms, and they're looking at you like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about taxes. I'm just going to do the data entry. Where
Right.
Here, we want the experience to be more welcoming, more educational, more inclusive. I'm going to ask you the questions that you may not even have known to
Right.
consider, right? And through that, I can tell you what tax credits you're eligible for, what type of things that you can do, what you shouldn't do, those kind of things, to make sure that your tax refund is really accurate, reflective, and not going to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Is Easy Tax, like, is there multiple locations, or did you like kind of come up with the name and everything?
In my mind, there are. It's so funny too, because when people come here, they're so surprised that this is like my baby. Like, people literally think, even when I first showed my partner the actual location, because he hadn't seen anything, I had pitched it to him, and again, I didn't want to ask him for money. I wanted to prove to him that I could create something. And so he travels back and forth between California, and the day that he came, I was like texting him location, and he pulls up and he said, "Did you buy a franchise?" And I was like, "No, I created one." So this is the first location, but my goal is to have 3 within the next 3 years.
Okay.
And the name, honestly, you're gonna laugh at me, but my kid's father, like I said, he's from Colombia, and one night we were just chatting, and I was telling him about what I was gonna create, and he's pretty creative himself, and I was just like, I need a good name, and he was like, he doesn't speak English, but he's like, Easy Tax, just call it Easy Tax. And I was just like, oh, okay, that kind of has a nice little ring to it, and I just stuck with it because it worked. But when I Googled it, no one else actually had the name locked down, and so I was like, it's available. You'd think that a name so creative and good like that would be taken, but it's mine.
You think an easy name would be...
And I find that when you... Sometimes it's just easier to simplify things, right? If you're in the business of making spray for stinky feet, call it stinky foot spray. Like, don't call it like whatever weird name. Sometimes you gotta let people know exactly what it is that they're getting, and it just makes it so much simpler. So
that's a good point. I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you're here, what are some benefits, let's say, for business owners to do their taxes?
That's a really good question. So one of the things I tell a lot of my clients, because I find that a lot of the people that walk through this door have a lot of fear surrounding taxes already. They're like, the IRS, that's the feds, that's the police. I better do this shit all the way up and up, and don't put anything extra on there because I'll go to jail. Right. And what I always tell my clients is, you live in America. And I don't know one adult American that makes money just by one way. And think about it, right? If you work a W-2 job and they pay you every other week, you mean to tell me that you only saw money 26 times this year? 26 times? Yeah. That's kind of hard to believe, right? Every single adult American that I know has a side hustle, whatever it is, whether it's that you make music, whether it's that you do hair, whether it's that you sell plates, whether it's that you do taxes on the side, whatever it is, you have a side hustle. And it actually is in your best interest to put it on your taxes. A lot of business owners don't know that the IRS doesn't look down upon losses, because losses happen every day in business. They actually allocate that you can do 3 years of claiming a loss on your business before they tell you no more of that, right? And so what does that mean when you're starting a business? Let's just take your business for example. You've got these cameras, lights, all these things that somehow, some way you had to buy these things to even get started, right? So your first year of business, you may have been working a regular job or working as a contractor somewhere, taking that money and investing it into starting your own business, right? Let's put that on your taxes, right? And so a lot of people, when we talk about business ownership, they're like, well, I don't have a license. That doesn't mean that you weren't a business owner. That just means you didn't have a license. Oh, well, I was a barber, but I didn't have I didn't get registered with the state and have a thing. That doesn't mean that you can't put that on your taxes, because you really did earn money or spend money to operate that business, and it could help your tax situation to be able to put that information on your taxes. So at the end of the day, if you are doing a side gig or you have a hustle, you have to be honest with your tax preparer about that, because if I don't know about that, I don't know that, or if you don't tell me that, I can't put it on your taxes, and if I don't put it on your taxes, it may or may not help you. Right. So I will always tell my clients, well, I don't know if you should put that $100 that you made from, I don't know, I don't want to give any horrible, well, that kind of stuff you have to put on there, because if they send you a form, you have to put it on there. But Sometimes people's businesses just didn't do well. They didn't really spend any money. They didn't even make any money. We don't really need to put that on there. But if you spent $10,000 investing in a hot dog machine and buying buns and hot dogs, let's put that on your taxes. And you shouldn't feel afraid to do that, because that actually is reflective. The biggest thing, though, if I had to tell business owners, is to be organized. Even though you can put it on your taxes and not have the business license and run it all through your personal accounts, it's not the best thing in the world to do it like that. The best thing that you can do is go ahead and pay the $50. This Colorado State only charges $50 to get a business license here. Reserve your name, get the business license, get your EIN number, and then set up a business bank account. And start running your business transactions through there. The best thing that you can do is separate your personal from your business. And that helps it to be organized, and it helps someone like me, who's an accountant, be able to go through that bank statement, separate your income, separate your expenses, and get down to whether you made money or you lost money. Even higher level than that is, don't wait till you're in to do it. Do it quarterly, do it monthly, because sometimes when you're running a business and it starts taking off, because again, we have that phase where you're investing, you're feeding the business. Right. But there becomes a point where it switches and the business starts feeding you. And if you don't take a step back and look at the big picture and see what really happened, you're never going to be able to play chess, right? And at the end of the day, when we're running a business, that's what we're doing. We're constantly playing chess. But if you're looking at the chessboard from the eyes of the rook, you're not really getting the big picture as if you're looking at it from the actual player and seeing the board and seeing what options are available to you. So when we organize the finances, we can see, well, wow, you spent $10,000 on marketing and you only made $5,000. Don't market like that anymore. Or you spent $10,000 on marketing and you turned around $50 of marketing. Invest more that way. So when you work with an accountant, you get to kind of step back out of the lens of the operation of your business and into the decision-making portion of your business, and do more of what's working and do less of what's not working. And those are the kind of decisions that separate bosses from hustlers. Being a hustler is great, and you can survive as a hustler, but you can't grow as a hustler, right? You really have to switch into the boss mentality and be able to make decisions. And decisions are fueled with information. Information is created with data. So we take that data and we turn it into actual pictures that we can decipher that data and say, oh, this is working for us, this is not working for us. We should pay more here, we should cut some costs here. And all of that lies in the numbers. So that's what I love about accounting. I could literally look at your bank statement and tell you 10 things about you that I never even have to meet you, but I can tell you things about yourself and how your habits are just by looking at how you spent your money.
That's real.
It really is.
Makes me think about my
yeah, I was like, I know your favorite. I know where you like to eat at. Yeah. I can tell you 10 things about yourself that you probably didn't know that I know about you just from going through your bank statements.
That's real, and it's important for people to hear.
Yeah.
I like this interview because it's very informative. It's a lot different than a lot of interviews out there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I don't want to bore people to death with this stuff because it can't. When I get a lot of people that be like, oh, you're an accountant. You're good with numbers. And it's more than numbers. I count money all day. That's all I do is count money all day. And it can get a little monotonous if you're just looking at it like that. But I'm looking for the story. I want to know what this says about this person behind the debit card,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I need to make sure I get my business bank account straight.
Yeah, get your business bank account straight, man. It's so worth it. It'll help you so much. It really will. You'll be able to make better decisions because you'll have the big picture.
That's real. Okay. So, kind of talked about the easy tax, how that came together, some more advice. I know you brought up that you want to open three stores. What are some of your goals?
So I have a big heart, and I'm learning I got to protect my heart a little bit better, especially in business. But one of my biggest goals is very altruistic. I really want the youth to see the path in accounting because I think so many of us aspire to be, and there's nothing against it, I'm not knocking it at all, but we aspire to be athletes, we aspire to be musicians, and some of the most successful people that I have ever met are accountants. Some of the people with some of the most access that I have ever met are accountants. If you think about it, right? For every millionaire, there's a man who counts his money.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even myself, I get chills thinking about some of the tables that I've sat at among millionaires, and they trusted me with their money. You know what I mean? Like, being an accountant just gives you so much access. And so one of my altruistic visions is to start a nonprofit where I help youth see the path into accounting and see the value into accounting. And my biggest goal is to be able to partner with the city of Denver to bring a program like that into our public schools, where we teach kids about taxes, we teach kids about finance, we teach kids about money. Because as an adult, if you had to tell me there's one thing that you deal with every day, it would be money, it'd be taxes, it'd be finance, it'd be accounting. Whether you're doing, and you don't, you really don't. And so if we start these kids to get interested into it early, create a pathway for them, and then create career opportunities. Like I told you, one thing I didn't love was working as a W-2 employee as an accountant, but there was never a time where if I needed a job, I couldn't get one as an accountant. There's just, every single one of these buildings has an accounting department in there, you know? And so that's one of my biggest goals, is to try to create a pathway for youth to be able to get into accounting and see the value in the accounting profession. Because not only does it create job opportunities and lifestyle opportunities, but it helps you be smarter with your own money, something that you deal with every day, personal finance, you know? So that's one of my biggest goals. I'm trying to think what else is another goal. Through this business, Easy Tax, I really want to be able to create my own employment opportunities. Right now we've got a staff of 3, and we're rocking, but imagine if I had 3 more locations, how many opportunities I could provide. So a lot of my goals are based on my heart. Of course, I want to, I'm a Capricorn, so I got some goals that are based on my pockets as well. And I don't have to get too nitty gritty on those, because I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable with my lofty ambitions.
It's good you have them, though.
Yeah, but no, I want to cross that threshold. I want to be a millionaire myself, because it's one thing to count other people's money. It's a whole nother thing to count your own. You know? So,
what is one piece of advice you could give to any entrepreneur or anyone, really? Just looking back at your old self, things you learned, just if there's one thing you've learned in life, one piece of advice you could give to anyone, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a really good one. So if you would have asked me that prior to Easy Tax, I would have given you some cliche answer like, never give up, always strive for the best. But now here I am, and we're still in the thick of tax season, so I am still learning a lot of the lessons. But my biggest piece of advice is, if you're running a business, stick to business. Do not break the laws of business, because you'll get away with it, in a sense, right? Where it may not show. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example or a way to phrase it. Let me just kind of stick with it and just articulate, and then I can try to find an example. But you can't break the rules. There's always a cost to everything. And when you're doing business, you pay the cost in one of 2 ways. You pay with time or you pay with money. But you'll always pay. So don't cheat the business code. Don't mix friendship in with business. Keep it business. Don't mix money in with pleasure. Keep it business. Don't cross those lines. You know the rules. The rules of the game are very, very, very simple, and they're very, very clear. We use our hearts in business. We justify certain things, and it'll always come back to bite you, and you'll pay for it in one of 2 ways, with time or money. So if you can, and you're starting into entrepreneurship, study the rules of business as much as you can and play the game as straight up as you can. Know that you're going to be tested. Know that people are going to try to take as much as they can from you, and it's your responsibility to protect yourself and protect the business and protect the vision at all cost. That really is the most important thing that I've learned.
I needed to hear that for real. That's some real shit.
It really is, man, because it's not a game, and what you're gambling with at the end of the day. I met this guy the other day. He came in here and he was delivering furniture, and I was asking him, because anybody that comes in here, I'm like, what's up with your taxes? And he
Yeah.
opened up to me and told me that he filed bankruptcy. And I think a lot of us look at business as like, oh, you know, you do it and you put your money in and then money comes out. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes businesses fail.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time when a business fails, it's because something that the owner did to break the rules. And so you have to realize that if you break the rules, you're gambling with the success of your vision, the success of your business, your reputation is on the line. So breaking the rules has a cost. You can't do it.
That's real.
And I'm learning that lesson myself.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I've learned a couple of those lessons already with this business.
Yeah.
So that's real. Okay. Oh yeah, one more thing. Crazy, like, what's the craziest tax story you can give?
Oh my God. Okay. Whew. The craziest?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was back when I was in Atlanta. I was working for this guy. He was a CPA, and he was purchasing a business. And a lot of times in the accounting industry, there's really two ways that you can build, in the tax business, I'll say, there's two ways that you can build a business. You either buy someone's business who's retiring, or you start from scratch building your own.
Yeah.
So this guy was buying a business, and he had hired me on as a tax preparer staff accountant. And I remember walking into this building, it was so eerie in the building, and there was like just this weird energy in there. And so the lady I was going to be taking over her position during the sale sat me down, and she was telling me basically the history of what had gone down. There was a CPA who was in federal prison, and his wife was an attorney, and basically they had been laundering money, drug money, for a cartel using their accounting business. So the way it was working was that the clients would come in, the guy would do their taxes, and if they had a business, he'd say, well, I see that your chicken wing business isn't doing so well. Could $10,000 help you? And of course, chicken wing guy is going to be like, of course $10,000 could help me. So he'd come out, give him $1,000 or $10,000 in cash, and then that guy would now owe him $10,000 plus interest. So he was using his accounting business to launder money. And he went to federal prison for it. They went through a whole case and a whole trial, and the lady who I was taking her position was the only one that didn't go to jail in that whole case. And I was talking to her, I was like, well, how did you save yourself? Everybody around you went to prison. And she explained that they weren't telling her what was going on. She wasn't aware of the big picture, but her biggest thing that she did while she was working was CYA, cover your ass. So every time that she saw something that was suspicious in her mind, she wrote an email to document it. She would ask questions via email. Well, I see that you're asking me to remove $10,000 from your profit and loss. Can you confirm that this is correct? And by having all that documentation, when the case went to federal court, she had all of her backup documentation. The man that was in charge of the operation did a lot of time in jail. And there was another accountant who was supposed to testify. He ended up having an aneurysm and died in the chair that I had to work in.
Damn.
And I remember feeling this eerie energy in there because we were taking over these accounts of these people who had accepted that money that had been laundered. And some of them had went down as well. And it made me realize how serious this profession is that there's really no cheat codes around it. When you're dealing with criminals and you're deciding to get involved in their business, that you can fall to. And the IRS doesn't care that you have a family, the federal government, and it's not the IRS so much, but once you start laundering money, you're breaking the law, right? But the IRS does get involved because then there's tax implication, there's all these different things. And so the biggest lesson that I learned through that was don't again, like I said, coming from my background with my hustler boyfriend, and he showed me that there's a way that you can make money that's not right. But in this profession, it's not worth it. The best thing that you can do is do things on the up and up, because when it all crumbles down, it crumbles down in a major way. And again, having to work in that office was just, whew.
That's wild.
It was tense. The air was always thick in there. And like I said, the man died in the chair that I was like, can I get a different chair? Like, I gotta work in the chair he died in. And,
that's crazy.
there was a lot of weight on that whole situation. But it taught me so much just early on in my career about the fiscal responsibility that I take on as an accountant, that if I turn a blind eye to anything, that it can fall back on me. So that's something that's really important, and it helped me build my own code of ethics.
Where can the people find you, follow you on social media? How can they contact you, if they want to get their taxes done?
Yeah,
stuff
so
like that.
we got till April 18th to get taxes done. If you're just not able to get your stuff together by then, we can always file an extension. I'm here every day. I take a break every now and then because I deserve it, but the office is located basically on Leetsdale and Quebec, Leetsdale and Oneida. We're in the same plaza as Golden Meds. That's what I use as our anchor. Viva Burrito, if you've ever had their amazing, whatever their specials are, their amazing burritos. We're in the same plaza as them. Social media wise, you can find us on Instagram at EasyTaxDenver. If you need to call us, 303-305-4363, and then of course through our website at www.easytaxdenver.com.
Okay, perfect. Any promos you got going on right now?
We don't have any promotions going on right now. Y'all missed all the promos. But my biggest thing is don't delay. A lot of the times people are dragging their feet on doing their taxes because they feel like you're gonna owe, and maybe when you put it into TurboTax you did owe, but I'm pretty sure I can get you in a better situation without, like I always said, within my code of ethics, so that you can sleep at night. So and even if you do owe, we can figure out strategies so that we can lessen what it is that you owe, or kind of get you ready for next year so that you don't owe. I always want to remind my clients that taxes are like the foundation for all of our finances. So if home buying is one of your goals, if ever starting a business and being able to get funding is one of your goals, people couldn't get their PPP loans without their taxes done. Stop putting off your taxes thinking that you can't file them or that you shouldn't file them, whatever your situation is, and just come in and talk to us, because a lot of the times what you've heard on the streets or what you've seen in movies really isn't the reality about what it is, and by doing your taxes you'll sleep better at night.
Okay, perfect. Well, this has been a legendary interview.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you for giving tons of game to the people. Make sure everyone who's watching this interview go follow Easy Tax Denver on Instagram, Facebook. Give her a call if you need some taxes done. All links and contact info will be in the description. Make sure y'all hit that like button, comment down below who you want to see next on the Mile High Minute. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button to stay notified when all the latest news drops. Big shout out again to the sponsor, 3AM Water. Go get that hydration for the go-getters. And that'll do it. Mile High Minute, #1 podcast in the universe. We out.
Yeah.